I am determined to not let this cold stop me from talking about this manga. I loved it so much, and I'm hoping that the brain fog I have been struggling with, that it goes away just for the duration of this video review. Hello friends, happy Friday. So very excited that you're here, really excited to be here. I'm filming this review early when I have my cold, so hopefully at this point that my cold has actually gone away. But I started this manga that I'm talking about today, I think sometime during the time I was really sick with the head cold and right after I recovered from the stomach virus. And I decided to start this one because I'm like, oh, it should be pretty easy, pretty light on my brain. I think for the most part it was, but at the same time, it wasn't. And that series I'm going to be talking about today is Love Me, Love Me Not by Iosaki Saka. I should have held it this way. It is a 12-volume series. It is incredible. It is incredible. And I'm just like, the first thing I should say is I read this way too fast. I devoured this series. I honestly wish I could have read it even faster, which might sound weird to say, like Laura, you just said that you read it too fast. I definitely need to go back and do a reread of this for sure, but I could not get enough of this story. And the only reason I say I wish I would have read it faster in this sense, I wish I would have read more volumes like on the days that I read it, because when I was sick, I think I was only reading like 3 to 4 volumes a day, maybe 5. But I wish I would have read more like I did in the beginning, because this series, I feel officially the best way for me to read Iosaki Saka is to binge read her stories. I don't know if I could read them as they are releasing like I did with Sakura Saku, and I did talk about them, a reading wrap up of like why didn't I absolutely love that series. I mean, I liked it, I didn't have anything bad to say about it, but I was not emotionally invested nearly the same way I was with this series and other series by Iosaki Saka, because I have read and reviewed on this channel Haru Ride as well as Strobe Edge. I'll leave a link down below if you'd like to check them out. Strobe Edge is the one that got me invested into Iosaki Saka, and then Haru Ride I loved, and I didn't think there'd be another series that I loved more than Haru Ride, but here we are with Love Me, Love Me Not. I honestly feel like I love this series the most out of all of her series. I did see this morning I read Strobe Edge in 2021, and I have not reread the series since because I don't have all of the volumes. I think now officially I have half of the series. Volume 6 though, I mean, I don't know if I will ever get that if Viz Media does not reprint it, but I do have that one and I need to reread that. But I loved Love Me, Love Me Not. It was amazing. It was an incredible story, and I'm a little upset that I feel like the community has not hyped this series enough, because I've just always felt like the majority of people really love Haru Ride, and that was like the best Iosaki Saka work. And so Love Me, Love Me Not has been well under my radar for a really long time, and even when it was like releasing, I know I wanted to pick it up, but I just didn't. So shout out to my friend Kara, because it was actually because of her that I got the whole series. We did a manga swap. I got this series and I sent her like a variety of other different manga that she was interested in. It was one of the best swaps I've ever done. I am so thankful. But in case if you're like me and you didn't know anything about this series except for who the creator is, let me tell you about it, because again, I didn't really know anything about this and I feel like it's sort of underrated, but everybody I've talked to is like, I love this series by her. It is my favorite by her. So we need to talk about this. Love Me, Love Me Not is about these two girls here. This is Yuna and this is Akari, and they have this run-in, you could say. They're at the train station. Akari is about to go visit her friend who's moving. Yuna is also about to go visit her friend that is moving. Akari realizes she doesn't have enough money for the train ticket or the train fare that she needs. And she's like, I need to ask somebody if they would give me money, even though I don't want to do that. Well, she asks Yuna because Yuna looks like she isn't intimidating to come to and ask her for money. Like, hey, Yuna's like, oh my gosh. But she's like, okay, I will give you this because I'll go just give this to you, because in her mind, she's thinking it'd be horrible to be the person that stops somebody else from going to say goodbye to their friend. So she gives it to her, and Akari's like, well, hey, I want to make sure that you get your money back, that you feel like you can trust me, so I'm going to give you this important bracelet to me. Meet me here tomorrow. They meet back up the next day. Akari pays her back. They start to get to know each other because they find out they live in the same apartment building. They realize, though, they have very different views when it comes to love. Yuna is waiting for love to find her, that her Prince Charming is going to come come to her and everything's gonna be, I guess, very glittery and very magical, and it's gonna be perfect. Akari's like, I don't really know if that works, because she's like, don't you need to get to know different guys? You need to see, do you have that connection, that spark with them? Because you never know where your Prince Charming may be. You might need to get to know other guys and go find love yourself rather than it finding you. And they both have the impression that the other person is sort of wrong, and that can't be what real love is. It begins this incredible and amazing friendship between these two girls, where they realize they're not wrong for how they personally feel about love and other different views that they have on life, but that doesn't make the other person wrong either. In fact, if I could sum up this entire series with one line, I'm gonna say it's this one, which is actually in volume 1. I don't know where it is, but I wrote it in my Goodreads review, and I wanted to say it because, again, I feel like it perfectly wraps up this series, and that is, our values are very different, but let's keep being friends. I will say that is one of my favorite themes in this series. I very strongly believe, like even before reading the series, that you can be friends with anybody, even if you have very different, say, political views, religious views, views on love, views on life, maybe when it comes to sexuality, like any of that. I feel like you can still be friends with any person. Some people may say we can't make it work if we have radically different political views. No, I still feel that you could be friends with people, that you can put those differences aside and be genuine friends who trust one another, who come to one another with their problems and encourage the other person, again, regardless of those differences. This series, in my opinion, shows how true that is. Like she says, our values are very different, but let's keep being friends. It is the power of friendship, as cliche as that sounds. I would say, though, saying that cliche saying, this is not a shallow read. I have not felt that Aoharu Ride or Strobe Edge, that either one of them were shallow. I know some people may feel a little bit differently from what I've seen on the internet, but I feel like Iosaki Saka really thrives at writing very realistic characters that you're gonna get frustrated at because you're like, you should not be making this kind of dumb decision, but it makes sense why they're making that decision. Like, it's not always just a plot point, it's not just always a point to move the story forward, and I very much felt that when reading Let Me Not. I felt that these two girls were just so realistic, but I have to say that when it came to both girls, and I forgot to say too, Iosaki Saka mentions at the beginning and at the end that she purposely wrote this story where these are our two heroines. These are our main two female leads. There's not just one. And she wanted to show, again, just like with that quote, I know I keep going back to that, but I think it's a really significant, the keystone of this series, critical that both of them have the same spotlight, the same focus in this series. Yuna is not greater than Akari. Akari is not greater than Yuna. They both have equal time on page. I feel maybe in the middle, because the middle was actually my favorite part of this series. I was so incredibly emotionally invested. I felt like my emotions were exploding. I did not know how to come to terms with what I was feeling because I was so excited. I was so upset. I was feeling some anger, and I'm just like, Ganbare, you can do it. I was feeling a lot of different things. I think it was like volume 5 or volume 6, maybe volume 7 that I read it, and I was like, I cannot go to sleep. It took me an hour that night to go to sleep because I was just on cloud 9 after everything that had happened. Going back, I was saying Yuna felt more of the focus for the earlier part of the series, while Akari felt the focus for the later part of the series, and I thought it was so well done because this series has a perfect balance of all of the fluffiness, gives me all of the happy vibes and all of the doki doki, very, very wonderful. Well, Akari's story has a lot of layers, in my opinion. It's very rich and very deep. You've got to pull back those layers to see what exactly is happening, what exactly is going on, and I think it fits so well for the story because you find out a lot about Akari's life at home, how things have been, especially in the first 3 volumes. I loved the first 2 volumes. They were amazing. I got to volume 3. It was the only volume out of this whole series that I gave 4 stars, and that's just because Rio, I really didn't like a decision that he made at the end. And I feel like for some people, when they read this series in the beginning, I guess as a heads up more than a minor spoiler, Rio is the stepbrother of Akari. And they sort of knew each other before their parents got married, and he did have feelings for Akari Akari for a really long time. Even when their parents got married, he was still internally wrestling with that. And he makes the decision, just like, why did you do it, Rio? And it causes some problems. I'm not gonna say drama, but yes, it did cause drama, but it felt like there was more to it than just drama for the sake of drama. And it really is a critical moment where all of our characters have to face what they're feeling internally, where they cannot simply go on with the way things have been all of this time, which is a good point to go into Akari. And don't worry, things work out with Rio. I don't even know if I could talk about his romance with a certain character, but I loved it. I ate it up. The other guy, because our male leads, there's 2 male leads, not just one. This is Kazu, and again, not this one. Again, this is Rio right here. Kazu is Yuna's childhood friend. They've grown up together. And for me, loving childhood friends, like the trope, like child friends to lovers, I was surprised I was not shipping him and Yuna at all. And it was actually really nice how there was a moment where there was no like, I've loved my best friend for all of my life and they just don't know my feelings. Like that was not here. And I actually really appreciate that. And it made a clear line because Yuna and Kazu were like, I don't love them like that, even though people are like, you'd make a great couple, and they're like, no, we just don't have romantic feelings, like we're just really great childhood friends. And I thought that was really refreshing and really great. I forgot I was saying earlier, I was trying to lead it into Akari, but I was so moved by Akari's story, and I really struggled because I related so much to Yuna that I was like, where exactly does Akari fit for me in my love for both of these leads? I think it was just because I had a really hard time relating to Akari in the beginning. I definitely could not relate to her views on love. I didn't judge Akari for having different views that were different than Yuna's, but I just could not relate to her for a lot of the earlier part of the series. But she has so much character growth, her and Kazu both, when I think about how they were in the beginning to how they changed at the end. Like everything makes sense when you read the entire series and you see the changes that happen to Akari, the character growth and the development that she needed to go through in order to be the young woman she is at the end. I just thought it was so well executed. I don't know how, if it was any other way, we wouldn't have seen all of the hurdles and the obstacles that Akari had to go through in order for her to believe in herself, to start trusting herself, trying not to be cool because she doesn't want to get hurt again. Her family life really affected her, and it didn't seem like it did that much at the beginning. Yes, she has a little bit of issue with her mom and some of the choices that she makes, but Akari goes with the flow, and she had to stop that in order to really embrace who she is. She's a new her by the end, and I felt the ending was perfect for her story, because when you think back and you think of all the things that she has given up to just go with the flow, to be cool in someone else's eyes, and maybe that makes her sound shallow. I never felt that she was shallow, but I didn't realize how much of herself she was also hiding, how she was sort of nervous about I guess anybody would be nervous about the idea of rejection, but she didn't want to put more into, say, a relationship or friendship at the risk of not receiving the same kind of input she's giving the other person. So it was sort of like she was putting up this wall and she didn't even realize she was doing it. But as she's getting to know Yuna and she starts having feelings, I would say, for Kazu, she's starting to realize things about herself. And if there was any issue I ultimately had with this series, it was not a deal breaker or anything like that. But if there was any issue I had in this series, it actually came down to Akari's ex-boyfriend. I really hated the things that he said to Akari, and I admire Akari that she still felt like this character was nice, but when he said things to her, I 100% agree with Kazu that it was just mean. I don't feel like that character had a right or a place to say the things that he's saying. Like, you can't be blunt and mean at the beginning for the duration, I feel like, for the majority of this series, and then at the end that you're like, lean on me because I can help you. How is she supposed to, in my opinion, if I was Akari, how is she supposed to believe that that she can lean on you, that you can help her in this situation when you're calling her things like saying you're just a hollow shell? And Akari felt that he was never mean in these moments, that he was blunt, yes, but that deep down he's kind. Yes, it definitely was when he says these things, it was the turning point for Akari to look inward, to think on herself, to focus on herself. And I really did love that about this series, especially with, I mean, Yuna has it too, but especially with Akari, that she really did want to go pursue Kazu, the guy that she really likes, that she loves. But she really felt that she needed to work on herself first because she didn't feel that she was in a place to be in a relationship. And I felt that spoke of a maturity to Akari's character, that she really wanted to work on herself. Granted, saying that, the moment that she has where she realizes she can tell Kazu how she feels, that she doesn't need to be this better person, she doesn't need to have overcome X thing to tell him that she likes him, to give herself permission to like him. I loved that moment. I felt it was so important for her to realize, like, yes, girl, we are all, every person is always working on themselves. There will probably always be a point in our lives that we never feel we're fully at the place we want to be or change into the person we ultimately want to be, and that we can't use that as a wall or a point to stop in going forward and pursuing different things. In her case, it was pursuing a guy that she liked. To tie that into Kazu, because he was a really interesting male hero, because I could not pick up his vibe at the beginning. And if he liked people, I really loved the creator's comments about his character, because it did help him make a little bit more sense and not just like, dude, I don't understand you at all. Like Akari, you may not fully know what she's thinking in the beginning, but his story was the most heartbreaking to me. And I think it was really relatable in a lot of ways, that we can, like Akari, what I was saying, of there's a wall that we put there, and we can use, as somebody tells Kazu, convenient excuses not to do certain things. And we're not realizing, Kazu did not realize, I mean, it doesn't say this in the book, this is how I personally interpreted the situation, that we can cage ourselves. We're so focused on maybe sticking to the middle path, doing where, you know, we're not giving in to people's expectations, but we're not disappointing them either. Akari goes with the flow. Kazu's like, I'm just going to do the middle route where I don't make anybody mad, but I don't make anybody upset either. Because of that, I felt like he caged himself. Again, he was using, as somebody says, you're using excuses not to do certain things, but he did not see it. He did not see that he had put himself in a box. It wasn't because of his family's expectations. It wasn't because of his brother and the decisions that his brother made and how it impacted him. Yes, there were things that he was not able to do because of his parents and such, but ultimately he himself was stopping himself from moving forward. The way that unfolded of him having this breakthrough, this powerful breakthrough, being able to pursue his dreams, not because of anything else, but ultimately pursuing his dream because he himself says, I want to do this. This is my dream. And I love that, even though it feels weird to actually say, sorry about my voice, even though Akari is going through so much inner turmoil at home because of her family situation, I did love that still in the midst of everything that's happening in her life, that she still tells Kazu, you need to pursue your dream. You need to do the things that you like. There's nothing wrong. Nobody can tell you that you can't like something, that you can't love something. Why do you need to put that aside simply because of what somebody else says? Even if that includes a parent, you can still like it. You can still hope for it. You can still love it. And that was a very amazing moment in this series that I never expected to get, when the earlier previous volumes were so fluffy and had all of the romance shoujo that I absolutely adore. In my opinion, that was peak storytelling for shoujo manga. I love it. And so I never expected that when I was on this high from everything that's happened, all the good things happening in Yuna's life, and then to get hit so hard with Akari's end journey and Kazu's end journey and how their relationship almost broke me in the final volume. But it made sense. When these two people have given up everything else, that they've gone in the middle of the road, they've done what they thought was cool in other people's eyes, to finally say, I am going to go pursue this thing. I am not going to give up this thing anymore. Oh man, it makes me want to tear up. It was so heartfelt and so beautiful. And it was definitely last night a huge reason why I cried reading the final volume. I wanted that for them, and I didn't know I wanted that, or I knew I wanted it. I meant I didn't know I needed that for them. Even more than the romance, I needed to see these two to stand on their own 2 feet and choose themselves, choose their own happiness, choose to say, I'm not going to let ideas about myself or let people that I thought were holding me back ultimately really weren't. That I'm not going to let myself hold me back. And I'm going to go forward. I'm going to go forward. This is one of these series that I was so hoping that the ending would be like a time skip. We see him married, we see him having kids or whatever, you know. It was not that kind of ending. It was something greater. And in my brain, yes, I 100% believe that they all got married and everything. 100% believe that. But the ending for their story was absolute perfection. There's nothing I would change about it. And I just wanted to share that because last night after I wrote my review on Goodreads, what did I do? I'm gonna go see the other reviews. That was the dumbest thing I could have done last night was go look at those reviews because people knocked. They're like, the ending could have been more. And you know, everybody has the right to their opinion. But for me, this ending was perfect. And I think it was just, again, going back to what I said earlier, so well done to have all that fluff and then have the ending hit so emotionally and so heartfelt and so deeply. I loved it. I loved every single moment. And I'm just so happy for Kazu and Akari and the decisions that they made for themselves. I feel like especially when we're teenagers, it can be really hard to think of the future and not just think in the now. And I was like, Akari, no judgment if you make a decision for this now. But she acknowledged her feelings. And it doesn't necessarily happen at the end. I mean, it does, but it doesn't. Yuna tells Akari when things are really bad at home. And she tells her, you have a choice, Akari. And I feel like that was a running low-key theme for this series that remind me we all have a choice. Even when, you know, they're teenagers, they depend on their parents, and when their parents are arguing and it looks like there's going to be a divorce, it can feel like they don't have a choice. They don't have any kind of control in their life at all to be able to do anything. Yuna still tells her, you still have a choice. You can still acknowledge that you're feeling this way. And there's a moment where Akari does. She acknowledges she's feeling a certain way. And Yuna's like, you acknowledge this. You made a choice. And I love that because Yuna's I don't know how to describe her. I feel like she is a really chill heroine. She does not have the same depth per se, the same way Akari does. And I've been so thankful that the reviews I have seen that everybody has spoken so positively about Yuna because Yuna has been added to my list of characters that undeniably I relate to, that I'm like, this is like seeing myself on page. I cried a lot when reading Yuna's story. It was very heart-hitting and hard-hitting for me to be an adult and see myself still in Yuna, see the struggles that she has, because when Akari meets her, Yuna doesn't have self-confidence. She's a girl that's always looking down. She does not make a lot of eye contact. She at times has even said, maybe not to Akari per se, but internally Yuna has said, I really hate myself. I don't like how I'm always looking down, how I don't have self-confidence. She's like, I want to be like Akari. Akari to her is a girl who sparkles, who knows what she wants. And Yuna admires that so much about Akari. And Yuna wants to be like her. For Yuna to have, maybe it's not a life-changing situation, but Rio, he steps into her life. First impression, the way that they first meet was not that good. I did not love Rio in the beginning at all, but best boy up in this series. Oh man, he is some perfect shoujo hero vibes right there. But Rio enters her life, and Rio really helps Yuna to have more confidence in herself without him even realizing it. The influence that he has on her life, the influence that Akari has on her life, it has helped her to become this new person. And she even tells Akari, I feel like Rio has opened a whole new world for me. Yuna, slowly but surely, she starts working on herself. Yes, she wants to be someone that Rio could see as a partner, someone that Rio could start liking. But even more than that, it was for herself. It wasn't, I feel like, just purely so a guy would be attracted to her. I love how this was not a physical, life-changing 360 turnaround. It was an internal thing. It was on a heart level that Yuna grows and she changes, and Akari is such an influence on her life. And I feel like Yuna and Rio was an influence too, but I feel like Yuna's life shows that the people around us really do impact us in ways that they may never realize, that they may never know of how incredible they are. and how incredibly they have impacted us. And how maybe it doesn't necessarily lead to it, but I'm glad that Yuna saw she herself is incredible too. That she doesn't need to hate herself. She more or less says, I love myself. And the multiple times that Yuna has in this series, especially really early in the beginning, where she degrades herself, I just saw myself in her. There's even a time where she is not the best of moments. It was Valentine's Day. It's supposed to be a romantic moment, you know? But she says one thing that reflects her insecurities. All of that insecurity just starts pouring out. And she's like, I can't stop it. She's like, I know I'm hurting the guy that I love, that I'm hurting his feelings right now, but I can't stop the insecurities that are flowing out. And her boyfriend was amazing. And he reminded me so much of my husband, because in that moment, she's saying all these things. I'm not good at this. I'm not good at this. I'm not good at this. And just so focused on this negative self-talk that she can't get out of it. She doesn't know how to get out of it in that moment. And her boyfriend grabs her mouth, smushes her face. He's like, can you please stop basically bashing the woman that I love? He doesn't say bash, I put that in there, but he's like, can you stop bashing the woman that I love? And I was like, oh my gosh, like it really hit me. It reminded me of my husband and gave me just another, once again, deeper appreciation for him, because I am so prone to negative self-talk. Just like Yuna in high school, I was always a girl looking down. I didn't make eye contact with people. I was very embarrassed. I would get very nervous to talk to other people. Even now, to feel not always looking down now like she was at the beginning, but when she's having just those negative self-talk moments and how she's just like, I don't know how to get out of this. I was like, I relate so deeply to that in the present that, again, it made me cry. And I just could not help but cheer for Yuna with all of my heart. That I'm like, thank you, Iosaki Saka, for giving her the love story that she so desperately had wanted, that she had hoped that she would have, because she did. It was so satisfying seeing her boyfriend turn his whole life around. Their love story is really like Yuna fell first, but he fell significantly harder. I love them on page. They became a couple and it was so beautiful every single moment. And I just could not but help but be overjoyed for her and how she has changed. It was beautiful, guys. It was beautiful. I loved those volumes so incredibly much. I mean, I definitely want to reread the whole series, but coming back to the middle, I mean, I think it was like volumes 5 through 7, I would specifically want to come back to, because it was so happy inducing with all the good things that are happening, but also the way that it hit my heart as well. I mean, I just feel like so much that I am Yuna on page. I never expected to feel that coming into this series. Maybe I'm not explaining it well. I know I've talked a lot about Akari, but Yuna is a very special character in my opinion, and I'm just thankful that, again, people are not knocking her. I do not feel that she is shallow, that she wanted love to find her, and that she got this beautiful unfolding story in this series where, you know, she has both of her parents. She's very innocent and very naive, and she's a very kind and calm, chill kind of girl who deeply loves her friends. Maybe there's nothing extravagant about her or her life, but that doesn't make her story any less important. And that was also why I really love this series, that you have these two very different young women and they're in this series and they're both shown, they're both important, that both of their life stories matter, and that they may have different kind of struggles, they may have different kind of pain, but it's still important. It's not any lesser important than, say, Akari's, or vice versa, you know, Akari with Yuna, both of them. I really love that. I love that kind of dual storytelling that shows how wonderful both of these girls are and how they have deeply impacted each other's life to become something even better. They didn't know that they were struggling with certain things at the beginning. They didn't know that they needed somebody else to come in their life that was so different, but a better kind of different. That is exactly what happened. And I know I have not talked about Rio. I'm not sure what to say about him without going into full spoilers, but I loved his character growth from who he is at the beginning to who he is at the end. I could not get enough of it. And it was really, really incredible to me to see this young man. The choices he makes to protect his girlfriend was really, really hard hitting. I don't know if I want to say heart hitting or hard hitting. So I'm sort of like saying both. Sorry, I know I said that earlier too, but it was very inspiring to me, and I was really touched by a lot of his parts, like when he's hugged the first time by his girlfriend, and he's like, wow, I didn't know getting a hug by the person you loved was this amazing. Also, near the end, it really hit me as well when he's telling Kazu there's some gossip going around, basically. He's like, you know, I'm realizing caring for someone and taking care of someone, there's more to it. You can still be by their side, but that doesn't mean you're taking care of them, even though you care for them and you love them deeply. And he's like, I always want to take care of her. I want to do the best that I can for her. And I was very, very touched by that, because he's not a playboy, but the way he acts, I should say, in the beginning was a huge turnaround to who and how he acts at the end, and how much of a gentleman he is, and how he wants nothing but the best for his girl. Like Yuna, he doesn't have this groundbreaking story. Yes, he definitely has some things that are happening at home as well, and things are not always easy, but honestly, he just was a guy who's head over heels for his girlfriend. I feel like he really shows what it means to be in a respectful relationship, and again, taking care of the other person. I feel like his last words that he has with Kazu about what it means to take care of his girlfriend, truly and in a deeply meaningful way, will stick with me for a while. It definitely, I did tell my husband, I was like, you know, I know we've had a lot of sickness in our family right now. I was like, I want to take care of you in a better way and not just be someone that's standing by your side. Like, that really hit me, and I was very thankful to have that message personally impact me and want to be a better spouse to my husband and taking care of him. So I'm really glad that he was in this story. I definitely loved him, you know, after things happen. Basically, when he has a certain dream, I loved him from that point onward. I will say, when it comes to his guy friends that's interested in the same girl he likes, that was like the perfect love triangle. I mean, the other dude has no flaws. He is like, I couldn't hate him for any kind of way, and I really appreciate that, because sometimes, you know, I feel like in love triangles, you have like that guy that you're like, oh, don't like him, he's horrible for the MC, she needs to just get with the main guy, and that was not the case here, and I just really, really appreciate that. Also, the respect that Rio has for his friends, and coming right out and saying, hey, I'm sorry, but I like the same girl. I really love when we see that in manga, and there's not like a whole bunch of backstabbing and like gossiping about the other person, trying to bring him down, and no, we don't need that. We don't need that. And so for Rio to say, hey, I like the same girl, and the guy to be like, okay, finally, you're telling me, because I already knew, but you're finally saying something, was really satisfying to see, and I really love that. There's not necessarily a love triangle at all, but you know, there's like the love rival, and I didn't feel though it was unnecessary per se. Could it have been without? Yeah, but it didn't feel like this is just a plot point just to cause some things to happen. I mean, maybe so, but I don't know. It just felt much more meaningful to me, and I think it's because the other guy is not someone that you could just hate. He's a really great and kind guy, and I really liked him. I really liked him. And obviously, I wanted Rio to be the end game, and he was, but still, this series was absolutely wonderful. And when I was telling my husband, even my kids, because I've definitely told my kids about how much I've loved this series, I was thinking that I wanted to say today that this was a series unlike anything I've read, but I've been so hesitant to say that because I don't want people to feel like you're hyping this up too much. But this series is so special. I'm deeply thankful that I read it. The journey that I went on with these characters and the things that I saw in myself, the things that these high schoolers taught me, is a special experience. And I have definitely had that with other manga, shoujo manga, shonen manga, doesn't matter the demographic, but there really is something special about this series to have these two heroines who are so different, and people even say like, I'm surprised you're best friends. But to see them both get that focus, that spotlight, and be able to influence one another in the best of ways, to be able to be there for one another and encourage one another, is, I hope, an unforgettable reading experience for me. I hope this series is one that sticks with me for a long time. I eagerly look forward to coming back and rereading this series, though I will confess, I hope I read it a little bit slower and soak it in more with all the different things that are happening because I'm sure there's going to be different things that I notice that will hit me differently compared to this first time. All in all, I loved it. I loved every moment. It was so impactful and beautiful. So would I recommend it? Highly would recommend it. This is one of the best Iosaki Saka manga I have ever read, and that's saying a lot because I love Aoharu Ride and I love Stro Badge. Those are already really good, but there is many beautiful things in this series that I think a lot of people would really enjoy. So I hope that you give it a try, even if you have read Iosaki Saka's other works, even if you have not. And yeah, I'm just gonna wrap it up there. Let me know, friends, have you read Iosaki Saka's work? Are you a fan of her work? What is your favorite series by her? If you haven't, what are some romance series that you know of that have more than one main heroine tell the story? I would love to know because this was a great way to tell a story and I would be curious to read more like it. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe, and thank you so much for watching. Bye!